The training hall of Sector 9 smelled like burnt ozone and overconfidence. I, Krell Noth of the 7th Fleet, had seen 300 cycles of Academy instruction, and never, not once, had I witnessed such a spectacle of incompetence packaged in such a small frame. The human stood barely 5 feet tall, her pale skin almost translucent under the harsh, artificial lighting. Dark circles beneath her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept properly in weeks. Her file listed her designation as Maya Reeves, Origin Planet Earth, Physical Combat Rating, Deficient, Tactical Assessment Scores, Below Minimum Threshold, Recommended Action, Immediate Dismissal. "This," bellowed Instructor Vornax, his forearms gesturing dramatically at the trembling figure, "is what the Earthborn send us now? A creature that looks like it might collapse from a strong breeze?" The other cadets, massive Kronthians with their chitinous exoskeletons, sleek Viridians whose bodies rippled with predatory grace, even the modest Thalaxians who stood 7 feet in their adolescence, erupted in laughter. The sound echoed off the metallic walls, a symphony of mockery that made my secondary ears fold back in discomfort. Maya said nothing. Her jaw clenched, tiny muscles working beneath that fragile skin, but she maintained eye contact with Vornax. Bold, for someone so obviously outmatched. "Perhaps," Vornax continued, circling her like a scavenger bird eyeing carrion, "we should send you back to your homeworld. Tell them the Coalition has standards, yes? That we cannot waste resources on projects destined to fail?" "No, sir." Maya's voice emerged quiet but steady, each word precisely enunciated. "I'm staying." More laughter rippled through the assembly. I found myself studying her more closely, this puzzle that didn't fit any known pattern. Humans had joined the Coalition only 15 cycles ago, their admission controversial, their planet considered a backwater of limited strategic value. Most human recruits washed out within the first month, unable to match the physical demands of species that had evolved under harsher gravitational constants, more competitive ecosystems. This one looked like she might not survive the first week. "Staying?" Vornax's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Very well, Earthborn. Let us test your conviction. Combat assessment, right now, against—" His predatory gaze swept across the assembled cadets, landing on Thork, a Kronthian built like an armored personnel carrier. "Him." Thork stepped forward, each footfall causing minor vibrations in the floor plating. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his exoskeleton gleaming like polished obsidian, clawed hands flexing with anticipation. The betting odds, calculated instantly through my neural implant, gave Maya a survival probability of 12%, victory probability of 0.03%, statistical certainty of humiliation. Maya walked to the center of the mat, her movements small, economical. She wore the standard Academy training uniform, gray synthetic material that hung loosely on her diminutive frame. Beside Thork, she looked like a child's toy accidentally left in a war zone. "Standard rules," Vornax announced. "First to 3 confirmed strikes, or submission. Begin." Thork charged immediately, a strategy relying on overwhelming force and speed. Most Kronthians fought this way, their natural armor making defense almost unnecessary. His massive fist, each knuckle reinforced with bone ridges that could crack duralloy, swept toward Maya's head in an arc designed to end the fight in seconds. She wasn't there. The movement happened so quickly, my primary eyes struggled to track it. Maya had dropped, rolled, come up behind Thork's lead leg. Her small fist struck precisely at the joint between exoskeleton plates, the weak point every Kronthian possessed, but few opponents could reach because of their sheer size advantage. Thork roared, more surprised than injured, spinning with remarkable agility for his bulk. His backhand swipe could have decapitated a Voridian, but again, Maya had already moved, staying inside his reach where those massive limbs had less leverage, less speed. The laughter had stopped. For 90 seconds, Maya made Thork look foolish. She was everywhere and nowhere, striking joints, vulnerable spots, using his mass against him. When he tried to grab her, she slipped away. When he charged, she redirected his momentum. The cadets watched in stunned silence as this fragile Earthborn turned combat doctrine into performance art. Then Thork adapted. He stopped trying to hit her directly, and instead slammed both fists into the mat, creating a shockwave that knocked Maya off balance. Before she could recover, his tail, thick as my torso, swept her legs. She hit the ground hard, the impact driving air from her lungs in an audible gasp. Thork was on her instantly, one massive hand pinning both her arms, his weight crushing her into the mat. "Submit, Earthborn," he growled, not unkindly. "You fought well, but biology has limits." Maya's face had gone red, then purple, struggling to breathe under pressure that would have liquefied most beings her size. Her legs kicked uselessly against exoskeleton that registered such impacts as gentle tickling. The match was over. Everyone knew it. Protocol demanded she submit or risk serious injury. "Submit!" Vornax commanded. "That is an order, Cadet Reeves." Maya's lips moved, barely a whisper. "No." "What?" Vornax leaned closer. "I said no, sir." Her voice emerged as a pained rasp, but somehow still defiant. "I won't quit." Madness. Absolute madness. Thork looked uncertain, his training warring with basic decency. No one wanted to seriously harm an opponent this outmatched. Vornax's expression cycled through confusion, irritation, then something approaching concern. "Thork, release her," the instructor ordered. "The Earthborn has demonstrated sufficient tenacity." The Kronthian stood, and Maya lay gasping on the mat, her chest heaving, bruises already forming on pale skin. But she was smiling, actually smiling, as if losing had somehow satisfied her. Strange creatures, humans, so very strange. Medical drones swarmed immediately, their scanners painting her in diagnostic light. Minor fractures, soft tissue damage, respiratory stress, the attending physician reported. Nothing permanent, but she would spend the night in regeneration tanks. As they carried her away on an anti-grav stretcher, Maya's eyes found mine in the crowd. We locked gazes for perhaps 2 seconds, but in that moment, I saw something that made my combat instincts, honed through decades of service, suddenly scream warnings. This human was dangerous. Not because of physical prowess or tactical brilliance. No, something else lurked behind those eyes, something patient and calculating that suggested this entire display had been exactly what she intended. A test, perhaps, but not of her abilities. Of us. Of our assumptions, our prejudices, our predictability. That night, unable to sleep despite the late hour, I accessed the Academy database, calling up Maya Reeves's complete file. Most of it matched what I already knew. Mediocre scores across most categories. Physical assessments placing her in the bottom 10% of all cadets. Psychological evaluation, noting extreme stubbornness and refusal to acknowledge personal limitations. But there was a section, flagged with coalition security protocols, that required Level 7 clearance to access. As a senior instructor and former intelligence operative, I possessed Level 8. My curiosity, thoroughly provoked by the day's events, demanded satisfaction. I activated the decryption sequence, watching security barriers dissolve one by one. The file expanded, revealing nothing. Almost nothing. Just a single line of text, stark against the black background. Subject access restricted pending verification of death or permanent incapacitation. Authorization code required. Warning: unauthorized disclosure carries penalties up to and including summary execution. My blood, such as it was, ran cold. This level of security didn't exist for Academy cadets. It barely existed for active field operatives. The only time I'd encountered such measures was during the Kethros incident, when we'd discovered Coalition Council members had been replaced by hostile intelligence. That investigation had resulted in 17 executions and the complete restructuring of our counterintelligence apparatus. What in the name of all darkness was a human carrying this kind of classification doing in a basic training facility? I tried the authorization prompt, knowing my credentials wouldn't be sufficient but unable to resist. The system immediately locked down, red warning text flooding my screen. Unauthorized access attempt logged. Security response initiated. Remain in position. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I'd just triggered alarm systems that would bring armed response teams within minutes, all because I couldn't control my curiosity. The door to my quarters hissed open without being commanded. 3 figures entered, but not the security personnel I'd expected. These wore the unmarked black uniforms of Coalition intelligence, their faces hidden behind reflective visors that turned them into faceless instruments of authority. Instructor Krell Noth. The lead agent's voice emerged synthesized, stripped of identifying characteristics. You attempted to access classified materials regarding Cadet Maya Reeves. Explain your reasoning. Truth seemed the safest option when dealing with intelligence services. They possessed sensors that could detect lies with 98% accuracy, and besides, I had legitimate grounds for inquiry. The cadet demonstrated unusual characteristics during combat assessment. Her file's security classification seemed disproportionate to her apparent abilities and status. As an instructor responsible for Academy safety, I deemed investigation appropriate. Silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then, your curiosity is noted and understood. However, you will cease all further investigation into Cadet Reeves's background. You will treat her as any other student. You will not discuss this matter with colleagues or superiors. Violation of these directives will result in immediate detention and psychological reconditioning. Acknowledge compliance. I acknowledge and will comply. The words tasted like defeat, but self-preservation demanded cooperation. They left as silently as they'd arrived, taking with them any hope I'd had of solving this mystery through official channels. But their very presence confirmed my suspicions. Maya Reeves was not what she appeared to be, and someone, somewhere high in the Coalition power structure, wanted her identity protected at all costs. The question was, why? Morning came too quickly. I arrived at the training hall to find Maya already present, released from medical care and apparently suffering no lasting effects from yesterday's brutalization. She performed warm-up exercises alone in a corner, her movements precise and controlled, while other cadets gave her a wide berth. Some of that distance, I suspected, came from newfound respect. She'd lasted longer against Thork than most had expected, but primarily they avoided her because humans remained other strange pale creatures from a gravity-poor world that somehow produced warriors too stubborn to acknowledge when they were beaten. Vornax arrived, his mood visibly improved, likely because he'd won significant credits betting on Thork. Today, he announced, voice carrying easily across the hall, we conduct tactical simulations. You will be divided into squads of 5, assigned random scenarios, and evaluated on problem-solving under pressure. performance affects your placement rankings for advanced training streams. The cadets sorted themselves quickly into comfortable groupings. Species tended to cluster together, Crontians with Crontians, Viridians with their own kind, and so forth. The instructors generally allowed this, believing that students learned better when working with physiologically similar teammates. This left Maya standing alone, watching the social dynamics play out with an expression of weary resignation. She'd probably experienced this many times before, this casual exclusion that wasn't quite hazing, but definitely wasn't acceptance. "The Earthborn will join Squad 7, Vornax declared, consulting his datapad. Squad 7 consisted of 4 Thalaxians, tall and elegant, who exchanged glances that clearly communicated their displeasure at being saddled with dead weight. Their squad leader, a male named Yorvak, whose gray skin bore ceremonial scarring denoting noble birth, approached Maya with visible reluctance. "Try not to get in our way, human. We're ranked 3rd overall. We don't need you dragging down our scores." "Understood," Maya replied quietly. No anger, no defensiveness, just flat acknowledgement. The simulation chambers were coalition standard, holographic environments capable of replicating everything from peaceful negotiations to full-scale planetary invasions. Squad 7 drew Scenario Delta 17, hostile boarding action aboard a damaged freighter, objective to secure the engineering section before reactor destabilization resulted in catastrophic explosion. Time limit, 12 minutes. I observed through the monitoring suite, watching multiple squads simultaneously while maintaining special attention on Squad 7. The Thalaxians moved with practiced coordination, their natural telepathic abilities allowing seamless tactical communication. Maya trailed behind, her shorter legs forcing her to jog while they walked. Her assigned weapon, a standard plasma rifle, looking comically oversized in her small hands. The freighter's corridors were narrow, poorly lit, smoke from electrical fires reducing visibility. Enemy combatants, simulated but dangerous within the holographic parameters, defended choke points with overlapping fields of fire. Squad 7's initial assault ran into immediate resistance, energy bolts tearing through the air in brilliant streams of lethal light. Yorvak directed his team with competent efficiency, using standard coalition doctrine. Suppress enemy position. Flank with superior mobility. Overwhelm through coordinated assault. It should have worked. Against most defenders, it would have worked. These enemies fought differently, using hit-and-run tactics, refusing to hold positions long enough to be flanked, falling back through the ship's maintenance tunnels and service ducts. Unconventional, frustrating, and alarmingly effective. Squad 7's advance stalled completely, pinned down in a junction with 3 access corridors, each offering equal probability of ambush. 8 minutes remaining. "We're wasting time," one Thalaxian hissed, his frustration bleeding through their telepathic link strongly enough that monitoring equipment registered the emotional spike. "Just pick a route." "All routes are compromised," Yorvak snapped back. "We push forward blindly. We lose team members. We lose team members. We fail the scenario." 7 minutes. Maya had remained silent throughout, crouched behind a structural support beam, her eyes constantly moving, assessing. Now she spoke, her voice barely audible above simulated combat noise. "The service ducts." "What?" Yorvak didn't even look at her. "They're using the service ducts for rapid repositioning. That's why standard flanking doesn't work. They're moving through the infrastructure, not the corridors." "Brilliant observation, Earthborn." Yorvak's sarcasm could have stripped paint. "Unfortunately, we're too large to fit in service ducts. Unlike humans, We evolved on worlds with actual predators. Maya's jaw tightened, but her voice remained level. You can't fit. I can. Give me 3 minutes. I'll flush them into your firing lanes. 6 minutes remaining. Yorvak hesitated, combat doctrine warring with pride. Accepting help from the weakest team member would be admitting his strategy had failed. But the chronometer showed brutal reality. They were running out of time, and traditional approaches weren't working. Fine, he growled. 3 minutes. Then we advance, regardless. Maya moved before he finished speaking, dropping her oversized plasma rifle and pulling a compact sidearm from her equipment harness. She located a maintenance access panel, pried it open with surprising strength, and disappeared into darkness that would have terrified most species. Humans, I reflected, had evolved as endurance hunters on plains where predators could see them coming from miles away. They'd survived not through strength or speed, but through sheer stubborn persistence and willingness to go where other creatures couldn't or wouldn't follow. The monitoring display showed Maya's progress through thermal imaging, her small form crawling through spaces barely wide enough to allow passage. She moved quickly, efficiently, showing no hesitation despite the claustrophobic environment. Within 90 seconds, she'd positioned herself above the enemy strongpoint, a ventilation shaft that offered clear line of sight to their defensive position. What happened next violated every rule of engagement, every tactical doctrine taught in coalition academies. Maya dropped a thermal grenade, smoke variant, directly into the enemy position. As choking clouds filled the corridor, she emerged from the shaft like some nightmare creature, landing among disoriented enemies with her sidearm blazing. The simulated combatants, programmed to react like real opponents, did exactly what any rational being would do when ambushed from an impossible angle. They panicked and ran directly into Squad 7's waiting firing lanes. The Thalaxians, credit to their training, didn't hesitate. They cut down fleeing enemies with clinical precision, their plasma fire creating a killing zone that nothing could survive. Within 30 seconds, the strongpoint was eliminated, the path to engineering section clear. 3 minutes 40 seconds remaining. Squad 7 reached the objective with time to spare, securing the reactor controls and completing the scenario well within parameters. Their score would rank among the top 5 performances of the day. But none of them celebrated. They stood in shocked silence, staring at Maya, who had rejoined them looking slightly singed and significantly pleased with herself. Yorvak's expression cycled through confusion, admiration, and something approaching fear. "How did you—" he began, then stopped, unable to formulate the question. "Humans are small," Maya said simply. "We learn to use it as an advantage." The simulation ended, holographic environments dissolving into the bare chamber walls. As they filed out for debriefing, I noticed the other cadets watching Maya with new interest. Word had spread quickly through the Academy grapevine. The weak Earthborn had just solved a scenario that had stumped multiple high-ranked squads. Vornax conducted the after-action review with visible confusion, his prepared lecture about proper tactical fundamentals rendered irrelevant by Maya's completely improper but undeniably effective approach. He settled for grudging acknowledgement. Unconventional, but successful. Squad 7 advances to competitive tier. That evening, I violated my agreement with Coalition Intelligence. Not overtly, nothing that would trigger their monitoring systems, but through careful observation and logical deduction. If I couldn't access Maya's classified files directly, perhaps I could understand her through her actions, her choices, the small details that revealed character better than any official record. She ate alone in the cafeteria, consuming food with mechanical efficiency, no pleasure, just fuel intake. She studied training materials long after other cadets had retired, her quarters lights visible from the observation deck until deep into the night cycle. She volunteered for additional physical conditioning despite already meeting minimum requirements, pushing her inadequate human physiology to its absolute limits. This wasn't the behavior of someone trying to survive academy. This was someone on a mission, someone driven by purposes that transcended personal advancement or glory-seeking. On the fifth day, everything changed. An emergency alert shrieked through the academy, the specific tone that indicated not a drill but actual crisis. All instructors reported immediately to Command Center, where Admiral Thelkvor, station commander, addressed us with an expression of barely controlled fury. 15 minutes ago, the freighter Merchant's Hope transmitted a distress signal from Sector 14. Pirates, well armed and organized, have seized the vessel and its crew of 72 civilians. They're demanding ransom and safe passage, threatening to execute hostages if we attempt military intervention. Standard procedure called for deployment of our rapid response team, elite operators trained specifically for hostage rescue. But Thelkvor continued, his voice heavy with implications. The Merchant's Hope is registered to Counselor Vexthara, carrying his family and personal staff. This is not just a pirate incident. This is a political crisis that could destabilize the entire sector if mishandled. Politicians. Of course, nothing mobilized coalition resources faster than threats to the ruling class and their relatives. All Academy training operations are suspended, the Admiral declared. We're deploying every available asset, including advanced cadets. This is now a live exercise with real consequences. Instructor Vornax, select your 5 best tactical squads. They'll provide support to primary response teams. Vornax consulted his rankings, selecting squads based purely on simulation scores and combat assessments. Squad 7 made the list, primarily because of their recent performance in the Delta 17 scenario, which meant Maya Reeves, the weak Earthborn who could barely pass physical requirements, was about to face actual combat against enemies who wouldn't pull their strikes or observe safety protocols. The briefing took 40 minutes. Tactical displays showing the freighter's layout, known enemy positions, probable hostage locations. The pirates had positioned themselves brilliantly, using the hostages as human, or rather alien, shields, while controlling critical ship systems. Any direct assault would result in significant civilian casualties. Our advantage, the operation commander explained, a scarred Voridian veteran named Krath, is that they expect military response, not academy students. They'll be watching for armored assault teams, not training units. We use that. Support squads will approach through cargo vectors they won't anticipate, create diversions, draw their attention while primary teams execute rescue operations. It was a sound plan, assuming the enemy followed predictable patterns, assuming they didn't have inside information about coalition response protocols, assuming 100 variables aligned perfectly. I'd participated in enough actual combat operations to know how rarely such assumptions survived contact with reality. The transport flight to intercept coordinates took 90 minutes, time the cadets spent in nervous silence. I watched Maya carefully, looking for signs of fear, doubt, anything that might explain her mysterious classification. She sat motionless, eyes closed, breathing slow and controlled. Meditation, perhaps, or simply conserving energy. When we achieved visual range of the Merchant's Hope, the freighter looked like a wounded beast, its hull scarred by weapons fire, emergency lighting casting everything in hellish red glow. Our approach would use boarding pods, small craft designed to latch onto hull surfaces and cut through to interior spaces. Squad 7 drew a vector targeting the cargo bay, theoretically undefended but offering direct access to lower decks, where hostages were reportedly held. As they boarded their pod, Yorvak pulled Maya aside, his earlier contempt replaced by something approaching respect. "Listen, human. What you did in the simulation was impressive, but this is real. People die here. If you're scared, if you can't handle it, tell me now. No shame in recognizing limitations." Maya met his gaze steadily. "I appreciate the concern, Yorvak, but I'm exactly where I need to be." The words carried weight, layers of meaning that suggested this moment represented something more than just another training exercise. This was why she'd endured mockery, why she'd accepted brutal physical punishment, why she'd pushed beyond reasonable limits despite her obvious physical disadvantages. This was the mission. The boarding pod hit the freighter's hull with a metallic shriek that rattled my teeth. Magnetic clamps engaged, cutting torches flared to life, and within 40 seconds we'd burned through 2 inches of Duralloy plating. Squad 7 dropped into the cargo bay first, weapons raised, senses alert for ambush. Silence greeted them. Empty crates, scattered equipment, shadows that danced in flickering emergency lighting. But no enemies. Too easy. Far too easy. "Advance to Checkpoint Alpha," Krath's voice crackled through communications. "Primary teams are engaging hostiles on Deck 3. We need you to secure the auxiliary power grid. Cut off their control of life support systems." Yorvak signaled his team forward, moving through the cargo bay with textbook precision. The Thalaxians flowed like water, their telepathic coordination allowing them to cover angles and clear spaces with efficiency that would have impressed veteran units. Maya followed, weapon ready, her small size actually advantageous now in the cluttered environment where larger beings had to duck and weave around obstacles. They'd penetrated 3 decks deeper when the trap sprung. Explosions ripped through the corridor behind them, sealing their retreat route with collapsed bulkheads and ruptured power conduits. Simultaneously, hidden gun turrets emerged from ceiling mounts, filling the passageway with plasma fire hot enough to melt steel. The Thalaxians scattered, seeking cover, but one wasn't fast enough. Energy bolts caught him center mass, burning through armor and flesh with equal ease. He dropped, screaming, his telepathic death throes flooding the squad's mental link with agony. "Fall back!" Yorvak roared, but there was nowhere to fall back to, their exit blocked by tons of wreckage. Maya moved without hesitation, sprinting directly toward the gun turrets, while every rational instinct should have told her to seek shelter. She zigzagged, making herself unpredictable, using cargo containers as momentary shields. Plasma bolts traced lethal paths around her, missing by margins so thin I could barely comprehend how she calculated the timing. She reached the turret's base, too close for its targeting systems to track, and slapped something against the mounting bracket. Then she was running again, diving behind a support beam just as the shaped charge detonated, ripping the turret from its moorings in a shower of sparks and molten metal. "Grenades on turret 2!" she shouted. "Focus fire! Overload the cooling system!" The remaining Thalaxians responded instantly, pouring concentrated plasma fire into the second turret. Within seconds, its thermal management failed, causing a cascade reaction that turned the weapon into an improvised bomb. The explosion took out a section of ceiling, but also cleared their forward path. Silence returned, broken only by labored breathing, and the wounded Thalaxian's quiet moans. Yorvak knelt beside his fallen comrade, checking vitals, his expression grim. Still alive, but critical. He needs medical evacuation now. Negative on evacuation. Krath's voice cut through their communications. All extraction routes are compromised. Pirates have anti-aircraft batteries targeting any departing craft. You push forward, or you die there. Those are the options. Brutal calculus, but accurate. The mission had become a one-way trip until someone neutralized those batteries or negotiated a ceasefire. Standard military logic said, leave the wounded, complete objectives, hope enough survive to make the sacrifice worthwhile. Maya knelt beside the injured Thalaxian, pulling emergency medical supplies from her pack. Go, she told Yorvak. I'll stabilize him, catch up when he's secure. You can't stay here alone, that's suicide, Yorvak protested. I said go, that's not a suggestion. Something in Maya's voice had changed, acquired an edge of command that made even the proud Thalaxian hesitate. You have 3 minutes before pirates send reinforcements to investigate the explosions. Move now or fail completely. Yorvak's combat training warred with his instincts, but ultimately the mission won. He led the remaining squad members forward, leaving Maya alone with the dying Thalaxian and approaching enemy forces. I watched through Maya's helmet camera, my role as observer keeping me safely aboard our command ship, while cadets fought for survival. It felt cowardly, remaining here while they bled, but command structures demanded someone maintain tactical overview and coordinate responses. Maya worked with surprising medical competency, sealing wounds, administering trauma drugs, stabilizing the Thalaxian's condition from critical to merely severe. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, no wasted motion, no hesitation. This was not someone learning battlefield medicine. This was someone who'd done it many times before. You're going to live, Varrock, she murmured, using the injured cadet's personal name. Your bondmates are waiting for you back home. You'll see them again. I promise. Footsteps echoed through adjacent corridors, multiple contacts, moving fast. The pirates had arrived to investigate, probably expecting to find dead Academy students or fleeing survivors. What they found instead was a single human, small and apparently helpless, crouched over a wounded alien. 5 pirates emerged into the cargo bay, a mixed group, Kronthians and Viridians, their weapons marked with kill tallies, their armor battle-scarred and worn. Professional criminals, not the desperate amateurs that usually attempted hijackings. Their leader, a Viridian female with acid-scarred features, laughed when she saw Maya. Look what we have here! A little Earthborn playing soldier. Tell me, tiny thing, where are the rest of your friends? Maya stood slowly, positioning herself between the pirates and Varrock. Her sidearm remained holstered, her posture non-threatening, hands visible and empty. Gone. It's just me and the wounded. We're non-combatants, no threat to your operation. You can leave us. Focus on targets that matter. The pirate leader's amusement deepened. Oh, I don't think so. You see, we have quotas to meet, examples to make. Dead coalition cadets send excellent messages about what happens when you interfere with our business. She raised her weapon, a heavy plasma rifle that could vaporize Maya's entire torso with a single shot. Time seemed to slow, that horrible compression that occurs in moments before violence, when every detail becomes crystalline and inevitable. Maya's hand moved. I'd seen fast draws before, spent decades training with elite operators who could clear leather and fire in under half a second. Maya was faster. Her sidearm appeared in her hand as if teleported, and she fired 3 times before the pirate leader's finger completed its trigger pull. The first shot took the leader in the throat, punching through soft tissue and severing the spinal column. The second caught a Kronthian pirate in his unarmored eye socket. the only vulnerable point on his entire body. The third killed a Viridian trying to bring his own weapon to bear, the bolt entering through his open mouth and exiting through the back of his skull. 3 dead in under 2 seconds. The remaining pirates, shocked by the impossible speed, froze for a fatal instant. Maya didn't freeze. She moved like liquid death, closing distance while firing, using the corpses of fallen enemies as momentary shields, her movements so precise they seemed choreographed. Another pirate fell, then another, and suddenly it was over. 5 bodies cooling on the deck, and Maya standing alone, breathing hard, but uninjured. She checked each corpse methodically, ensuring no survivors, then returned to Verak's side as if mass killing was simply another task requiring completion. "Still with me, Verak?" she asked softly. The Thalaxian stared at her with all 4 eyes, his telepathic abilities probably picking up things that visual observation couldn't. "What are you?" he whispered. "Stubborn," Maya replied, reloading her weapon with practiced efficiency. "Very, very stubborn. Now stay quiet. Conserve strength. Help is coming." Through the tactical network, chaos reigned. The primary assault had met heavier resistance than anticipated, taking significant casualties, making minimal progress toward hostage locations. The pirates fought with coordination, suggesting military training, possibly former coalition soldiers turned mercenary. Our force was stalling, the operation teetering on the edge of catastrophic failure. And then Maya's voice cut through the communications chaos, calm and absolutely certain. "Commander Krath, this is Cadet Reeves. I've neutralized hostile forces in Cargo Sector 7. I have access to maintenance tunnels leading directly to the hostage location. Request permission to proceed independently." "Negative!" Krath's response came sharp and immediate. "You're a cadet, Reeves, not a tactical operator. Hold position and wait for reinforcement." "Sir, with respect, reinforcements won't arrive before the pirates execute hostages. I can reach them in 8 minutes through routes too small for their defenders to effectively guard. This is our best option." "I said negative, Cadet. That's a direct order." Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then Maya spoke again, her voice carrying tones I'd never heard before, authority that transcended rank and hierarchy. "Commander, verify authorization code Omega 77 Delta. Execute now." What happened next violated every protocol, every chain of command principle that military organizations held sacred. The communications network paused, then priority override codes activated, the kind that only existed for the highest classification operations. Krath's voice returned, stripped of its earlier certainty, now containing equal parts confusion and fear. "Authorization confirmed. Cadet Reeves, you are cleared for independent operation. All units provide support as requested. Intelligence flagged. Do not interfere with subjects' operational decisions." The entire command structure had just inverted. Maya, the weakest cadet, the Earthborn everyone had mocked and dismissed, now possessed operational authority that superseded military commanders. Across the tactical network, I heard stunned silence as officers processed this impossible development. Maya didn't waste time explaining or gloating. She simply moved, pulling Verak into a concealed position behind cargo containers, ensuring he'd survive until medical teams arrived. Then she disappeared into the maintenance tunnels, her helmet camera providing fragmentary glimpses of her progress through intestinal spaces never meant for travel. I finally understood the security classification, the armed intelligence agents, the warnings about unauthorized disclosure. Maya Reeves wasn't just a cadet. She was something else entirely. Some kind of deep cover operative placed within the Academy for purposes I couldn't begin to guess. Her weakness, her struggles, her apparent inadequacy had all been carefully constructed fiction designed to avoid drawing attention. The instructors had laughed at the weak Earthborn. We'd dismissed her, patronized her, treated her as a charity case, representing Earth's marginal value to the Coalition. We'd been fools, dangerous, arrogant fools who'd mistaken the weapon for the target. Maya navigated the maintenance tunnels with eerie confidence, as if she'd memorized the freighter's entire layout. She bypassed security checkpoints, avoided patrol routes, moved through the ship's infrastructure like a ghost. Within 6 minutes, she'd reached a position directly above the compartment where hostages were held, a converted cargo hold now guarded by a dozen heavily armed pirates. "Hostages confirmed," she reported, her voice barely a whisper. 71 visible, 1 unaccounted for. Counselor Vexithara's family cluster is separated from the main group, probably being held for special leverage. 12 guards, alert and professional. Automated defenses at all entry points. Direct assault will result in mass casualties. "Can you wait for support?" Krath asked, though we all knew the answer. Negative. Pirates are preparing to execute 5 hostages in 4 minutes, demonstrating seriousness of their demands. If we wait, people die. "Then what do you propose?" Maya's response came cold and clinical. "I'm going to kill everyone who threatens civilians. Request all units create maximum noise and distraction in 60 seconds. Make them think the main assault is coming from Deck 4. Pull attention and resources away from this location." She didn't wait for acknowledgement, simply began her final approach. Through the ventilation shaft, she could see everything. The terrified hostages huddled together, the pirates standing watch with weapons ready. The improvised execution setup where 5 civilians knelt before a recording device, their deaths intended as propaganda, showing Coalition weakness. The distraction began right on schedule, explosions and weapons fire erupting across Deck 4, alarms shrieking, emergency lighting strobing. The pirates reacted exactly as predicted, half their force rushing toward the perceived threat, leaving only 6 to guard the hostages. Still too many for a direct assault. Still impossible odds. Maya dropped through a ceiling panel, landing behind the guard furthest from hostages. Her knife, some kind of monomolecular blade that could cut through duralloy, found his throat before he could shout warning. She dragged his body into shadows, took his rifle, and became something nightmares would envy. What followed wasn't combat. It was extermination. Maya moved through the compartment like inevitability itself, each shot perfectly placed, each movement calculated to maximum efficiency. She used the environment brilliantly, shooting out lights to create darkness that confused enemies while her helmet's night vision kept her oriented. She exploited cover, angles, timing, turning every advantage into dead pirates. The hostages watched in terrified awe as this small human systematically dismantled their captors. Within 90 seconds, all 6 guards lay dead or dying, and Maya stood among them, weapon still raised, scanning for threats. "Hostages secured," she reported. "Casualties, 0, requesting immediate evacuation." But the operation wasn't finished. Pirates still controlled the ship's bridge and engineering sections, still threatened to destroy the vessel if demands weren't met. The main assault remained stalled, taking casualties, achieving nothing. Maya checked the hostages quickly, ensuring no hidden injuries, then addressed them directly. "I need information. The missing person from Counselor Vexithara's party. Where are they?" An elderly Viridian female, probably someone important based on her elaborate clothing, spoke with remarkable composure considering recent events. the counselor's eldest daughter, Syrinx. They took her separately, said she was insurance against treachery. She's on the bridge, we think, being held as final leverage. Maya nodded, processing this information with visible calculation. Rescuing one hostage from a fortified bridge position would be nearly impossible. Doing it without getting that hostage killed would require either divine intervention or tactics so unorthodox they defied classification. "Commander Krath," Maya spoke into communications, "I'm going after the remaining hostage. The bridge is the command center. We take that, we end this." "Reeves, the bridge has 20 hostiles and hardened defenses. Even with your authorization, I can't endorse a suicide mission." "Not suicide, surgery. I'll need Squad 7 to create an opening on my signal. Have them ready to breach the port side airlock in exactly 12 minutes. Timing is critical." She was moving again before Krath could protest further, running through corridors with absolute confidence, heading toward the most heavily defended position on the entire ship. I wanted to scream at her to stop, to wait for proper support, to abandon this madness before it killed her. But something in her movements, her decisions, suggested she was operating from knowledge we didn't possess, playing a game with rules only she understood. Maya reached a junction near the bridge, taking cover behind a structural support. Through tactical displays, I watched Squad 7 positioning for their assault, while pirate forces concentrated on repelling our main attack. The freighter had become a chaotic battlefield, explosions and weapons fire echoing through every deck, smoke and blood painting everything in war's familiar palette. "Yorvak," Maya's voice emerged calm despite circumstances. "When you breach that airlock, you'll face immediate heavy resistance. Don't try to fight through it. Just make noise, draw their attention, make them commit forces to that. Vector. Can you do that?" "We can do it," Yorvak confirmed. His earlier contempt completely vanished. "But what will you be doing?" "Something stupid. Timing is critical. Execute in 10 seconds on my mark." Maya pulled something from her equipment harness, a device I didn't recognize, compact and unmarked. She attached it to the maintenance hatch, activated some kind of remote sequence, then began counting down. 3, 2, 1, mark! Squad 7's breach charge detonated, blowing the airlock open and filling that entire corridor with fire and fury. Pirates rushed toward the new threat, weapons blazing, exactly as Maya had predicted. And in that moment, when every eye was focused elsewhere, she activated her device. The maintenance hatch exploded inward with shaped charges that were definitely not standard Academy equipment. Maya went through the smoking opening before debris stopped falling, emerging directly onto the bridge behind all defensive positions. In the one spot, no one expected enemies to appear. 20 pirates turned as one, weapons swinging toward this impossible threat. But Maya wasn't attacking them. She was targeting equipment, specifically the communications array and the ship's self-destruct mechanism. Her first shots destroyed the transmitter, cutting pirates off from their reinforcements. Her second volley took out the destruct control panel, ensuring they couldn't destroy the ship as final revenge. Only then did she turn her weapon toward living targets. The bridge descended into chaos. Pirates scrambled for cover while trying to acquire targets, their numerical advantage meaningless in the confined space where friendly fire became a serious risk. Maya used this brilliantly, positioning herself so enemies couldn't shoot without hitting each other, moving constantly, never remaining static long enough for coordinated response. And through it all, she protected one person above all others. Syrinx, the counselor's daughter, a young Voridian female who'd been tied to the captain's chair as living deterrent against assault. Maya kept her body between the hostage and incoming fire, took hits on her armor that would have killed the civilian, all while systematically reducing the number of threats. The pirates broke. Not from casualties, though those mounted quickly, but from psychological pressure. They'd expected soft targets, frightened cadets, conventional tactics. Instead, they'd found something primal and relentless, something that fought with precision, that suggested extensive combat experience, and determination that suggested personal stakes beyond simple duty. The last 3 pirates threw down weapons, hands raised, shouting surrender. Maya accepted, restraining them efficiently while keeping her weapon ready for treachery that never came. Within 5 minutes of breaching the bridge, she'd secured the room, freed the hostage, and effectively ended the entire operation. "Bridge secure," she reported, breathing hard now, adrenaline finally catching up to her. "Final hostage safe. Ship is ours." The aftermath took hours to process. Medical teams evacuated wounded, both coalition forces and pirate survivors. Engineers secured the freighter's systems, ensuring it wouldn't explode or decompress. Intelligence officers interrogated prisoners, building cases that would result in public executions for piracy and hostage-taking. And through it all, Maya sat alone in the debriefing room, waiting for questions she knew were coming. I entered without permission, beyond caring about protocols that had already been shredded. "Who are you, really?" I demanded. "What is a coalition intelligence operative doing masquerading as an academy washout?" Maya looked at me with eyes that had seen too much, contained depths I'd only glimpsed today. "You don't have clearance for that answer, instructor. Neither do most people in the coalition. What I can tell you is that sometimes the best way to observe something is from the position everyone dismisses. The weak cadet no one notices can see things the decorated hero cannot." This was all an assignment? Enduring mockery, physical abuse, social isolation, all intelligence gathering? Partly, she smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. But also validation. There are those in coalition leadership who question Earth's value, who see humans as weak additions diluting military effectiveness. I volunteered to demonstrate that strength takes many forms, that the species you dismiss might save your life when circumstances demand flexibility over raw power. "And your real mission?" "Classified beyond your access level. But I can say the pirates weren't random criminals. They had backing, resources, intelligence that suggested coalition insider information. Someone high up is playing dangerous games, and my assignment is finding out who and why." The Academy provided perfect cover for investigation while building connections with future coalition officers. It made sense in a paranoid, conspiracy-minded way. The coalition had always struggled with internal corruption, species jockeying for advantage, political factions willing to sacrifice military effectiveness for personal gain. An intelligence operative positioned as a struggling cadet could observe Academy operations, build dossiers on cadets who might become valuable assets or dangerous traitors, all while remaining beneath notice. The other cadets, they deserve to know. After what they've been through today, the mockery they put you through. "They deserve exactly nothing," Maya interrupted, her voice suddenly hard. "They judged me based on appearance, dismissed me based on origin, treated me as inferior because I didn't match their physical standards. If today's events taught them anything, it should be that assumptions kill. Let them wonder, let them question, let them realize that the weakest link might actually be the strongest chain." She stood, collecting her equipment. "You'll receive official instructions within the hour. Memory modification protocols for everyone involved, classified mission status, non-disclosure agreements with criminal penalties for violation. This operation never happened, I'm still just Maya Reeves, struggling cadet from Earth, barely passing minimum standards. But people saw you. Squad 7, Commander Krath, dozens of others witnessed your capabilities. And they'll remember me getting lucky, being in the right place at the right time, following orders from actual operators who were running the real mission. Human memory is remarkably malleable when proper techniques are applied. By tomorrow, I'll be back to being the weak Earthborn, and everyone will have forgotten today's uncomfortable truths. She walked toward the exit, paused at the threshold, looked back at me with something approaching sympathy. One thing they won't modify, instructor. Your certainty that humans are dangerous. Keep that. Remember that the species you patronize, the individuals you dismiss, they might be exactly what saves the coalition when things go wrong. We're small, yes. Weak by your standards, absolutely. But we're also stubborn, creative, and willing to go places others won't. That combination? That's terrifying if you're our enemy. That's invaluable if you're our ally. Then she was gone, disappearing into the corridor, leaving me alone with thoughts that would haunt my remaining service years. The official reports classified everything exactly as Maya predicted. Memory modification teams worked through everyone involved, softening details, redirecting credit, transforming Maya's solo operation into a coordinated effort by multiple teams. Squad 7 remembered her as competent but not exceptional, someone who'd survived through luck and following orders, rather than tactical brilliance and lethal efficiency. But Yorvak, the proud Thalaxian who'd initially dismissed her as dead weight, came to me 3 days later with questions burning in his eyes. Instructor Krelnoth, I need to know. The human, Maya Reeves, did she really? Really what, Cadet? I kept my expression neutral. Nothing. Never mind. Just, sometimes I have these memories that don't quite fit together. Fragments of things that seem too incredible to be real. And when I see her in training, still struggling with physical requirements, still getting mocked by others, I wonder if I'm remembering correctly, or if combat stress created false impressions. Trust your training, Cadet. Trust the official reports. Everything else is just confusion caused by fear and adrenaline. He left unsatisfied, but he left. And I watched Maya through the observation windows, running the obstacle course at barely passing speed, her face showing strain that might be genuine or might be performance, and I no longer knew which. The academy returned to normal operations. New cadets arrived, veterans graduated, the endless cycle of military education grinding. Forward. Maya remained, still struggling, still dismissed, still occupying her role as the weak Earthborn that everyone pitied or mocked, depending on their personal character. But I watched her differently now. Watched her watching others, cataloging interactions, building profiles. Watched her volunteer for duties that placed her near sensitive equipment or classified briefings. Watched her befriend cadets from influential families or connected to political factions. She was still gathering intelligence, still executing her mysterious mission, still playing a role that fooled everyone except those few of us who'd glimpsed the truth. On my final day before transfer to fleet operations, I found Maya alone in the training hall, performing maintenance on equipment. She looked up as I approached, something knowing in her expression. Come to say goodbye, instructor? Come to say thank you. You saved lives during that operation, regardless of how official reports distribute credit. The coalition owes you a debt it can never acknowledge. Debts aren't why I do this. She returned to her work, hands moving with mechanical precision. I do it because someone has to. Because humanity earned its place in the coalition through blood and sacrifice, and I won't let anyone question our value. Every successful operation, every life saved, every threat neutralized proves we belong here despite our physical limitations. You could have died multiple times. The risks you took were calculated and acceptable. Humans specialize in acceptable risks, instructor. We walked upright on plains where predators could see us from miles away. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We split atoms without knowing if it would ignite the atmosphere. Risk is our evolutionary inheritance. We just learned to make it pay dividends. I left her there, this strange, small human carrying secrets that could shake the coalition to its foundations, playing roles that would earn her no recognition or glory, protecting people who dismissed her as inferior, the weak earthborn that everyone laughed at, the weapon hidden in plain sight, the reminder that strength takes forms beyond muscle and armor, that the beings we dismiss might be exactly what saves us when darkness comes calling. I never saw Maya Reeves again after that day. But sometimes, late at night when I reviewed casualty reports or political intelligence, I wondered how many successful operations bore her invisible fingerprints. How many crises were quietly resolved by the cadet everyone forgot, the human everyone underestimated. The coalition remained stable, threats were neutralized, political tensions diffused. And somewhere in the background, unnoticed and uncelebrated, Maya and others like her did the work that kept empires functioning. The instructors had laughed at the weak earthborn. They'd never know how badly they'd misjudged the situation, or how fortunate they were that she was on our side.